even in an expanded playoff now, where one loss should not end your season. Here's why Florida State losing to Georgia Tech ended the Seminole season. They are not making the playoff. Here's why. What we saw on Saturday in Dublin was not an anomaly. It was not just classic first game jitters from a college football team. What we saw on Saturday was a massive oversight from the AP poll. The Seminoles were overranked. They were overrated coming into the season. They were not as good as the number 10 ranking suggested they would be. They were overhyped coming to the season, and what we saw and how they played, that is who they are. They're an average team. They're not a top 10 team in the country. They're not one of the best teams in the ACC. As the late, great Denny Green would say, they are who we thought they were. At least in this case, they are who we saw they were on Saturday. This team is nothing more than average. And we have seen these miscalculations by the AP poll year after year. There's a reason why in 19 out of the last 20 years, we have seen a preseason top 10 team finish the year unranked. The AP poll, whether it's hype, whether it's carryover from last year, whether in this case, honestly, I think part of it is sympathy for the Seminoles not making the playoff last year and trying to make up for it by giving them a high ranking this year, whatever it may be. The AP poll, I think, grossly overrated the Seminoles, and Florida State will become now, for the 20th time in 21 years, they will become a top 10 preseason team that finishes the year unranked. I hope you listen, by the way, on my YouTube channel, Ryan Hickey. If you haven't subscribed, check it out. I called this happening. Find it right there on the AP poll preseason reaction. Told you two teams that are in the top 10 will finish unranked. Florida State and also Michigan. Why I'm down on Florida State and why I'm not surprised with how this game went for the Seminoles. Number one, first and foremost, DJ Uiagalelei is who he is. He's an average quarterback. Some good, some bad, averages out to just, he's okay. He's not a playmaker. He's not a consistent game changer. The Seminoles downgraded at quarterback compared to what they had last year with Jordan Travis. And so it's tough to win 10, 11 games. It's tough to win the ACC. It's tough to make even a 12-team college football playoff when you have an average quarterback and not a lot of elite around him. That's also part of the problem here for Florida State. We look at some of their skill players. Like, who sticks out to you? Who scares you? Whether it's receiver, whether it's running back, they don't have a lot of threats. They don't have a lot of game breakers right now. Like, you look at last year for the Seminoles, you had Keon Coleman, game breaker. You had Johnny Wilson, walking mismatch at 6'7" as a receiver. Jordan Travis was really damn good till he got hurt. But even when he got hurt, look, it was ugly. It was very ugly offensively for the Seminoles. But why did they continue to win games? They did so in part because their defense last year was a top 20 scoring defense in the country. So even though the offense just hit the skids once Travis got hurt late in the year, they still won games because they had a stout defense that would keep teams out of the end zone. Well, you look at that defense and how they played against the Yellow Jackets, that defense was slashed on the ground. They gave up 190 rushing yards to Georgia Tech. That's an average of 5.3 yards per carry. Tech was running up and down, no problem, gashing them, having their way with them, bullying them flat out. So now you're looking at a Florida State team. I think still people feeling guilty, feeling some sort of way about how the 2023 season ended for the Seminoles and feeling like maybe they got wronged by being undefeated in the regular season yet still being left out of the college football playoff. You looked at how this year looks with an average quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei, no real game breakers at receiver or running back, and a defense that is nowhere near as tough or stout as it was last year. You add it all up, this team is who we saw them on Saturday in Dublin. They are an average team. They are not a top 10 team. They are not an ACC championship kind of team. They are not a playoff team in the year of 2024. And so that's why technically one loss didn't end Florida State's season, but you look at how they played. How they play tells you it's not going to get much better. Remember, they still have on their schedule trips to at SMU. I get SMU did not look very good at Nevada on Saturday night as well. I have a whole lot more faith, though, in that SMU offense coming to life between now and the end of September when Florida State goes to town than I do the Seminoles offense getting to life and having some sort of consistency, or that defense shoring up between now and then. That's a really tough game for the Seminoles at SMU. Clemson comes to town. I think the Tigers right now are better than Florida State. At Miami. Miami's my pick to win the ACC. At Notre Dame in November. Good luck winning that game. Notre Dame's a playoff team this year. Like, you look at Florida State's record, even if we're talking about splitting these 4 games at SMU, Clemson, at Miami, at Notre Dame, I don't think they'll split, but let's just be generous here for a second. We're talking about that at best a 9-3 team. I don't think a 9-3 team is making the playoff this year. And so if you're Florida State right now, you see how they played in game number 1. This should not be a shock. This is who they are. And who they are is just an average team. So even though one loss didn't end their season, how they played and where they go from here, I think, shows you they're not a playoff team. They are instead the victim of overhype from the AP poll. That is what the Seminoles are. They're not a top 10 team in the country. DJ Uiagalelei is not a quarterback that can take over this team and lead them to the promised land. This team lost a lot from last year. And they are not going to be able to fix the holes they lost that quickly. Not after a loss like this to Georgia Tech. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. I think the Seminoles got exposed. Not even exposed, because this is who they are. What we saw on Saturday is Florida State football in the year of 2024. 2023 is gone. It's not coming back. And that loss to Georgia Tech in Dublin, that shows right there. They're not a playoff team in the year of 2024.